طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Last time we began with the different divisions of speech or statements, and we started off with al-Haqiqa wal-Majaz, literal and figurative speech. We're gonna refresh a bit about this, what we covered last class because we didn't finish it, and then we're gonna continue. So we're gonna start over with al-Haqiqa and al-Majaz from the beginning. He says رحمه الله ومن وجه آخر ينقسم الكلام إلى حقيقة ومجاز. So from here. And from a different point of view, speech can be divided into literal and figurative. We said that there's different definitions of literal and figurative, and depending on which definition of literal you choose, the definition of figurative changes. So the more inclusive your definition of literal, the less inclusive your definition of figurative speech. We said that the first definition of al-haqiqa, of literal speech, is that the usage of which it was first intended. So the Arabs use a word, asad, they use it for the animal known as the lion, and it was placed. We said that in Arabic we call this wada', that the Arabs placed this word for specific use. Now, the second meaning of haqiqa, as we said, is more inclusive, and it also covers conventional usage. So if a specific word was used for one meaning, but as time passed, it became known for a second meaning, to the extent that, to the extent that it became normal to use it for the second meaning. And if you use the second meaning with anyone, they're going to understand what you're saying. Then it also becomes haqiqa. We call this istilah or conventional usage. And we're gonna touch up on this in the next page. So, ما بقي في الاستعمال على موضعه. That's the first definition of haqiqa. So the translation is not specific or not detailed. ما بقي على الاستعمال في الاستعمال على موضعه. So what remained in usage على موضعه, in the place where it was placed. As we said, it was placed. It was specifically placed for a reason and for a specific usage. وقيل, and it was said, meaning this is the second definition. ما استعمل فيما اصطلح عليه من المخاطبة. So what is used in a usage that is conventionally accepted during speech. والمجاز, so figurative speech, is ما تجاوز عن موضعه. So we said موضع. موضع is the place where something was put or something was assigned. This is the meaning of موضع. The verb is وضع, to place. The place where it happens is the موضع. The same way sajda is the verb. The place where it happens is a masjid. So موضع, the first definition of haqiqa is what remains in its موضع. And he only gives one definition of majaz. He says what is not in its موضع, what is not in its placed usage. So if he only gives one definition of majaz, but he gives two definitions of haqiqa, we have to see which definition of haqiqa this is corresponding to. Because we said, if the definition of haqiqa changes, then the definition of majaz has to change because they're mutually exclusive and they're inclusive. Any statement has to be haqiqa or majaz. So if haqiqa increases, majaz has to decrease. So we have to see which version of haqiqa he's using. And obviously it's the first place. It's the first definition of haqiqa. Anything that is used in its original usage is haqiqa, and here is anything that is not in its original usage is majaz. So if we're going to use the second definition of haqiqa, ما استعمل فيما اصطلح عليه القوم, what is used in what is conventionally accepted. This is the second definition of haqiqa. If we change it, what becomes the definition of majaz here? It becomes ما استعمل في غير ما اصطلح عليه من المخاطبة. So the second definition of majaz that would correspond to this definition of haqiqa would be any usage that is not conventionally accepted amongst the people. Now, we also touched upon this last time. We said حقيقة can be لغوية, it can be linguistic, or شرعية, or legal, in the Islamic sense, أو عرفية, or it can be customary or conventional. We said that, for example, uh, the word salah in the linguistic حقيقة, in the linguistic literal, it means making dua. But we said that in the shar'i literal, in the legal حقيقة, salah is a um, specific ritual worship composed of X, Y, and Z. وإما عرفية. We didn't give an example of this last time. So a conventional usage, a حقيقة that is based off a specific custom. So عرف or custom in Arabic it can be for a specific nation, it can be for a specific tribe, or it can be for a um, specific group of people, such as usulis. The scholars of Usul al-Fiqh, they have their own customs, they have their own urf. The Arabs have their own urf. The Hijaz, so the western part of Arabia, has their own urf. Yemen has their own urf, even though they're all speaking Arabic, and the fuqaha and the muhaddithin are both speaking Arabic, except the fuqaha use a urf and the muhaddithin use a different urf. So within their own context, this is still haqiqah, but we say that this is haqiqah urfiyah. It's a customary literal. Within their own customs, they're using it for a literal um, usage. And some of the examples here, dabba. In the Arabic language, we have the word dabba. Dabba is used for animals, and the linguistic reality, the حقيقة لغوية, is كل ما يدب على وجه الأرض. Anything that is doing dab or specific movement on the face of the earth. However, in custom, it's only used for four-legged animals, such as horses, such as cows, such as sheep. So the Arabs placed it for a specific meaning. However, the custom moved this meaning. The custom made a new meaning for it within their own convention, within their own context. They now have their own literal usage for the word. And there's endless examples of this. And debatably, the shar'i haqiqah, we said that there's three: linguistic, shar'i, and customary. Shar'i is really just a form of customary, because the ulama are a custom. They are a convention. They're a specific selection of the people, and they have their own custom. So we said that urf can be for a nation. So there's the Hijazi urf. There can be the urf of Quraysh or the urf of Yemen. So shar'i is really just the urf of the people of shar'i sciences, or people who are speaking in a shar'i context. والمجاز إما أن يكون بزيادة أو نقصان أو نقل أو استعارة. So now the author is moving into the subsections of majaz. So he touched upon the sections of haqiqah. They're either literal, shar'i, or customary. Oh, sorry, they're linguistic, shar'i, or customary. Now the sections of majaz. And in truth, these sections of majaz are much more than this. They're also a little bit arbitrary. So the sections of majaz here might not correspond to the sections of majaz mentioned by a scholar, for example, 2 centuries later. The actual usage of them is the same. So the figurative speech remains the same, but the way we classify them is not always the same. So he has 4 categories here that he mentions. Later on, you might find 6, 8, or 10. So for example, he could take one category here, and the scholars could later on divide it into multiple categories and give each one their own name. And generally speaking, in all the Shari sciences, the more people progress time-wise, the more the sciences get complicated and the more divisions they make, because naturally, as time progresses, debate evolves, ideas become more developed, and things become more detailed and categorized. But for our own purposes, right now, um, this is perfectly fine for understanding what majaz is. So the first, I think he gives the translations here. Yeah. So the first, al-majaz biziyada. So figurative speech by adding something. And he gives the author gives examples. All these examples are perfect. The next three, النقص والنقل والاستعارة. Sorry. However, the first one is very debatable. So the next three are might make more sense to you. So the first, figure of speech by addition, majaz by ziyada, is when you add a word to a sentence, and that word is supposed to change the meaning, but we treat it as if it's not there, or we treat it as if it doesn't change the meaning. And the example he gives, and again, just to remind, this is a very debated example amongst linguists and mufassirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. لَيْسَ, there is not. Kaf means like. مثله also means like. Shay means anything. So the verse لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ is translated into, and it's understood as, there is nothing like unto him. There's nothing, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, laysa, there is not, and shay, a thing. We should say there is not a thing like him, right? However, as I said, kaf here means like, and mithlihi also means like. So the very, very literal understanding, if someone does not understand general context or general rhetorical devices, it would translate into, there is nothing like a like of him, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which does not make sense, and it's actually contrary to the wanted definition. It's actually the opposite. However, the kaf here is treated as majaz. It's treated as an addition to the speech. And the purpose of this rhetorical device, the purpose of this figure of speech here is to, as Imam Juwayni here argues, it's added to emphasize the meaning. So it means there's nothing like him, but the kaf and the mithil, they're not meant to be treated as two separate words. They're not meant to be read as like him. This is meant to emphasize the meaning. The kaf is meant to emphasize mithlihi. And again, I will keep reminding that this example is not the best example, and that a lot of the shurrah, the commentators of al-Waraqat, say that this example should not be used because linguistically there are other arguments to make for why the kaf is there. But this is what Imam Juwayni chose. It's a valid opinion, and that's what we're going to go by for now, because the concept is understood. Our purpose here is not to give a full tafsir of the verse. Our purpose is to explain what figure of speech by addition means. It's to add a word, and it's treated as if it's not there. The second one is the opposite, al-majaz bin nuqsan, figure of speech by deletion. It's when you delete a word from the sentence or remove a word from the sentence, but anyone can read it and understand that it's supposed to be there. And the example that Imam Juwayni gives is the verse, وَاسْأَلِ الْقَرْيَةِ, ask the village. Now, obviously, a village is not something you ask. You don't go to the houses of a village and you don't talk to the walls. You ask the people of the village. And that's what is meant. So it's the taqdeer, meaning the understood definition in the head is وَاسْأَلْ أَهْلَ الْقَرْيَةِ, ask the people of the village. But the word people or ahl is removed. And these types of majaz, as I said, Later on, there are more detailed categorizations of majaz. This one later on is called majaz aqli, or mental majaz, mental figurative speech, or logical figurative speech. And the reason for this is that the figurative speech here is understood by logic. It's understood by the mind because the mind knows that uh, you know you don't ask a village, you ask the people of a village. But this is the term that he uses instead, al-majaz bin nuqsan, figurative speech by deletion. And this is where istighath debates later come into play. But that's for a next level. والمجاز بالنقل, figurative speech by transfer. كالغائط. So, the Arabic word for uh, defecation or feces, Allah, is غائط. This is the standard word used. Now, if you go to anyone and ask them, what the translation of it is, they'll all tell you غائط. Nobody thinks this is majaz. They think this is حقيقة. And the reason for this is the original موضع of the word, the original usage of the word that the Arabs use it for is a place. It's a place, it's a type of feature in the earth. And as we know, back in the day, they did not have toilets. They would use specific places in the earth to do their business. And this place would be called a ghaat. Now, they transferred the word. The meaning became changed, or not changed, but they transferred the meaning, the usage of this word to something else. Instead of the place where you do your business, this word became used for the business itself. So the meaning of the word was transferred, or the word itself was transferred to a different meaning, I should say. And this is majaz bin naql. This is figurative speech by transfer. And again, later on, the different categories of majaz may do a better job of specifying these because some of these overlap. But again, we're just trying to get the main concepts into our heads so we understand them for the purposes of basic usul al-fiqh. Later on, in the next levels, all these types of majaz will be covered in painful detail, I should say. And the last one, wal-majaz bil-isti'ara. The translator uses figurative speech by metaphor, which I don't think is an accurate translation. I think the best translation, according to my understanding of English, is that this is a personification. You're adding a attribute of people to things. So the example, this is more obvious when we explain the example. كقوله تعالى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Kahf, جدار يريد أن ينقض. The wall wants to fall apart. Now, as we all know, walls don't want things. People want things. But this is majaz wa isti'ara. Isti'ara, the literal meaning of isti'ara in Arabic is to borrow something. So the wall is borrowing one of the attributes of humans, which is to want things. And I think that's self-explanatory. So the wall does not want to fall apart, but what is meant by this is that the wall is going to fall apart. Usually when humans want something, they do it. And if the wall is going to do something, then the metaphor is that, or the figurative speech is that the wall is going to fall down. So therefore it wants to fall down. And this is the last category of majaz that is mentioned. Last time we started haqiqa and majaz and we didn't finish it in the same class. And we do not have time to finish al-amr wa nahi because there's a lot of commentary here. So this is a good place to stop. And inshallah, the next class we'll start and finish al-amr wa nahi. If anyone has questions, we'll stay for about a minute. If not, then we will end for today. If questions are remembered later, as always, you can mention them in the group chat or message me directly. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.